Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is listening beyond the soundbites. Tonight, we have a very special guest, somebody I know from town, my own town, Berlin, but you know him as the Deputy Secretary of State, Chris Winters. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Pat. It's great to be here.
You've already announced, so this is anticlimactic, no news breaking.
Not breaking any news right now, no.
Chris is running for the Secretary of State position because Jim Condos, after, how many years is Jim?
This is his sixth term, so 12 years as Secretary of State.
We like Jim. Jim's been
great.
On the show. He's great. As you have.
Thank you.
Yes, you've been on the show, have you not?
Yes, I was on to talk about, I think, the vote by mail bill.
Yeah, vote by mail bill, right. All right, so for those who don't know you, though I can't imagine, but anyway, could you tell them a little bit about your background?
Sure thing. I don't think that many people know me, Pat.
Maybe not out of Montpelier. We'll have to change that.
So I grew up in Williamstown, and then I started going west for college. Went to Boston, went to Las Vegas, went to San Diego, and as I like to say, I hit the ocean and then I turned around.
Good job.
But growing up in Williamstown, son of a truck driver and an office secretary, and the oldest of three boys, went off to college. When it was time to raise a family, I came back home to Vermont because that's the place for me to bring up kids.
That's great. That happened, seriously, because when I was in the Department of Labor, that was a statistic of sorts that when kids left and go to college and when there was time to raise their children, they came back.
That's what I wanted to do.
Our lifestyle and who we are.
That's right. I got a criminal justice degree from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and a law degree in California.
Good for you.
And then came back to make my way in Vermont. Hung a shingle in Barrie, sole practitioner, small business, trying to do a little bit of criminal law, family law, and real estate law.
Nice.
On what I was doing there. And it was there that I impressed the right person at the right time, a friend of Jim Milne's.
And Jim Milne was,
Jim was the other Jim. There have been three Jims lately who've been secretaries of state. This was Jim Milne, and he needed a staff attorney. And he asked around to some of his friends, and one of his friends said, I saw this kid in a real estate transaction, and he was really sharp and on top of things. Why don't you give him a call? So I got a job at the Secretary of State's office in 1997.
Right.
Our first child was on the way, so I was like, hey, steady job, benefits, I'm in.
Good benefits. Right.
Yep, very good benefits. So that's how I got started at the Secretary of State's office. I lived in Cabot for a time. And now I live in Berlin. I've been there for 12 years now, I think.
Very
and as you know, a volunteer in the community,
Yep.
baseball, soccer, school board, including school board chair. Yep, we had a renovation and a bond that we got through there, and then a merger. And so now I live in Berlin with my wife, Sarah. I have 4 kids total.
Oh, busy.
2 still at home. And I guess in my spare time, I like to be outdoors. So doing things like camping, running, hiking, a little bit of nature photography. So that's a little bit about me.
Whoa, excellent. And so your career in Secretary of State, you were the attorney and then moved up the old ladder. What was the progression? Because you were deputy for a while. I don't know if there was something before that.
There were. So I've been there, it was in 1997 that I started, April 1st, 1997.
April Fool's Day.
That's right.
Gutsy guy.
I am known for my April Fool's jokes around the office.
Cool.
But so this April 1st will be my 25th anniversary there.
Nice.
And I never would have imagined a career in public service or state government, not what I thought I was going to do when I came out of law school. But I have loved it. So I was a staff attorney for professional licensing boards for 8 years. So that's like the nursing board and the dental board and the pharmacy board, real estate commission. Did that for 7 years. Deb Markowitz was then the Secretary of State. And Deb saw the wisdom in keeping me around when she won over Secretary Milne. And she made me the director of the Office of Professional Regulation.
Is that OPR?
OPR, your favorite.
Oh,
yeah.
I must say, when you're a legislator and you're in House or Senate GovOps, every year they bring in the OPR bill, which is yay thick.
It's good stuff.
And it's all about licensing.
It's important.
I know, I truly know it is, and I respect how much work goes into it. But it's not one of those bills that you can do in
No.
a couple of days.
No,
and
it's hard.
Pass it on. You're there for like a week or two.
Yep, it's
doing
all,
this.
50 professions and 80,000 different licensees, so they all have these little tweaks that you do every year for changes in practice and new standards, and it's all about protecting the public.
And it's actually, in seriousness, it's very good education for legislators, because where would I get the experience of 50 professions?
That's
And
right.
a lot of them will come in and testify, and
That's right.
it just takes a long time.
So I was the
anyway.
director of OPR for about
Yeah.
10 years when Jim Condos asked me to be his deputy.
That's great.
And that was 7 years ago. So I've been
Excellent.
deputy for 7 years now, kind of overseeing the whole operation now. So worked my way up. I like to say
That's
I
great.
started as a teenager cutting grass there, and now I'm deputy
Well,
secretary.
we had Laura Hebert. Did I get
Lauren Hibbert.
Lauren Hibbert. I come close. Sorry.
Yes.
She was on the show talking about the multi-state nursing
Yes.
which I thought was. We'll talk about that in a little while.
Sure.
I thought that was wonderful concept, and she was excellent, by the way.
Yep,
I really enjoyed. She did a great job on the show.
She is great. We
Yeah.
have a great team, and professional regulation used to just be about regulating,
Right.
but now we see it's got an impact on workforce and economy.
For
so we have
sure.
to
Well,
pay
especially
attention
with
to
the
that.
nursing crisis, that was.
Yep.
And she sounded like she was very involved, rolling up the sleeves and
Absolutely, we
and
played a
getting
big role
really
there.
involved.
Getting more nurses in when we needed them.
Yeah, that's great. Having sadly been up to Central Vermont recently, and
Wow.
they are really understaffed and under
Yeah,
a lot of pressure.
They've been warriors for the last 2
Yeah,
years.
for sure, for sure. So anyway, then one day you woke up and said, "Hey!" After Jim made his announcement,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
What made you decide to jump in? Because it's not an easy task.
It's not. It's a daunting task,
Yeah.
and it's a lot to think about. But I love the work. I've dedicated my career to it,
Right?
and I think I'm not done yet. I think I have more to give. All I've ever wanted to do was give back to the state of Vermont. That's been so good to me.
Yeah.
And thinking about throughout my career, maybe I go into private practice. Maybe I could make more money. But for me, it's about how much of a difference can I make.
That's great.
And so I'm not done yet. This is, I think, the next step to make a difference for Vermont and for
great.
Vermonters in the state that I love so
Good
much.
for you.
Yeah.
And you're right on State Street now. You used to be, what was that castle? Sort
It
of-
was called the Redstone Building
Redstone
up on
Building.
Terrace Street.
That
And
was a great building.
That was. The building we're in now on State Street was the same architect and the same kind of stonework. So it's very
that's,
similar.
you know what, it is very similar,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great building too. That's good.
Yep.
So I did a little research, as I
Sure.
always do when I have company on the show, and I looked at your website and stuff, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 6. I'm trying to count quickly. 6 divisions, at least what I could see on the website. Can we go through each one of those very
Sure.
quickly, just to
Yeah.
give people a?
Yeah, most people don't know what this,
Yeah.
beyond elections,
Because-
what the Secretary of State's office
Because what
does.
I didn't see here, and we'll talk about it, is we can just jump right into this, is the enforcement unit. What
Mm-hmm.
is that under? Or
That's professional regulation, so that's
okay.
public protection, that's complaints of unprofessional conduct. So
okay, great.
if your accountant steals your money, you can
Yeah,
make a
because you have
complaint to
several
us.
law enforcement folks that
We
work
do.
for
We
you.
have licensed law enforcement officers. We have 4 prosecuting attorneys. We have investigators. We have case managers.
Really?
We get about 800 complaints a year.
No,
Yep. Yep.
that's a lot of complaints. Are we allowed to give an example? Can someone kind of popped in your mind that we could talk about?
Sure. I mean, one that's we've been seeing more of, unfortunately, is drug diversion.
Oh,
So
lovely.
someone who has access, whether that's an LNA or a
Right.
pharmacist or a dentist, maybe develops a drug problem, and they might actually divert some of that medication to themselves rather than the patient.
lovely.
Yeah, and then there are a whole bunch of financial crimes as well that we would look into, whether that's, like I said, accountants or maybe funeral directors who
Yeah.
hold a trust, prepaid funeral services fund.
Ah.
Boy, it really runs the gamut. So
Yeah,
we
I
have,
bet.
with 50 professions, there's all kinds of stuff that can go wrong. You're held to a standard, and if you don't meet that standard, people can report you, and we would investigate and maybe
Great.
take away the license.
Good.
Yep.
Good for you. I knew one of the officers there for a year. This is years ago, so
Yeah.
I doubt he's there. If he's my age, he's not there anymore. But I was always very impressed with. He was always out and always something to do.
Yeah.
So
so
that's
many
sad,
cases.
but
Yeah.
but here you
Yep.
go.
Yep, that's our largest division. And the other piece of that, as I said, was making sure it's streamlined, that your regulation only goes as far as you need to protect the public and not an inch beyond that, because then you're a barrier to people getting a job or you're interfering in the marketplace. I know I sound like a libertarian when I say that, but that job will make a libertarian out of you. Yeah.
Geez, the word ophthalmologist just came to mind. That's I didn't put it in my questions because it just popped up. That's in the papers all the time.
It is.
And you guys are very much against it.
We are kind of stuck in the middle of this. I mean, we want professionals to practice to the highest level of their knowledge possible,
right,
so that consumers get the benefit of that. So it's this push and pull between our optometrists trained enough to do certain things,
right,
and the ophthalmologists are saying, we don't think they're trained enough. This is dangerous. So we get stuck kind of in the middle. We try to play the neutral.
Ophthalmologist and optometrist.
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Optometrists are the ones that we regulate. The ophthalmologists are medical doctors regulated by the Department of Health.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
So those are the turf battles.
Yeah,
you hear people
I
talk
think
about turf battles.
It's very confusing for those of us who are trying to understand where this should fall down. But I was going towards the OPR decision, so
sure.
I was like, nope. Okay, so let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
Your first division is corporations and business services.
Yeah, that's the first stop for any registered business. They have to come and register with the Secretary of State's office. We keep a master list, a registry of all of them. And again, we want to make that as streamlined and easy as possible for people to get registered and to renew those.
That's great. Yeah. And it's a very good source for all kinds of information.
Yeah.
You know, if you're campaigning, that just to just see who's who and what businesses are where.
Yes, definitely.
It's good. Just a hint. Not that you don't know that. The next one was business registration. I think that must be similar.
Yeah, that's the same as the corporations division.
And we talked about professional regulation. The election division, they've been a little busy.
That's a big one. That's the one that we're known for. I think that's probably the most important of our duties, is to make sure we have safe and secure and accurate elections. Things have been changing a lot. Of course, in 2020, we had to figure out how to safely have everyone vote during a pandemic.
Right.
We implemented a quick vote by mail under emergency circumstances, and people really liked it.
Yeah.
And so we went to the legislature and made that permanent. Going forward. So now the general elections, now you're going to get a ballot in the mail, but you still have the option of voting it in person if you want to.
Yeah, and bringing it there. Actually, that's what we did. The school, U32 and the high school, sent it by mail, but we brought it.
I did the same thing.
Town meeting
I did the same
person.
thing. I wanted to go in and see Rosemary.
Yeah, exactly. Check it out. And so I went there, and they made us take it out and put it in the box, and that was good. But we knew it made it, so that made us feel good.
That's right.
You know, and we're going to talk about elections in just a minute.
Sure.
Then you've got copies and certificates that. I need lobbyists in the election division.
That's right.
Because I'm a lobbyist, believe it or not.
I won't ask you for a donation. Then. I can't do that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I honestly didn't.
You were going to
know.
give me a donation.
I was. Too bad for you.
You can actually do it after the legislature is over.
Yes, of course. I knew that. I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. All right, so call me then. But because I'm always forgetting to file, and you had the head of the election division who sadly passed away.
Yeah.
She was helping me every quarter.
That's
I like,
right.
hello.
That was Liz, and she was an amazing human being.
Yes, and we really should just compliment her. I mean, she was a wonderful, wonderful person for your.
Absolutely, we miss her a lot.
Yeah, I bet you do. Anyway, she was wonderful to me, and I promised her lunch, and then she got sick, and I was just blown. I was blown away.
Yeah, we were all shocked.
Upset.
We were still shocked.
But that was once I figured it out. She explained to me. She even gave me a secret password that she knew and I knew. So when I called her, we didn't have to go through. It was good customer service, if I may say.
So that's under our elections division is lobbyist registration. So you know who's in the state house. Trying to influence issues, and campaign finance. So now, as a candidate, I need to file on March 15th and disclose how much money Pat McDonald gave me for my campaign.
They'll say, hey, she can't, she's a lobbyist.
So it's a good source of information to know what's going on around
Yeah, it
elections.
is. It's great, and especially for lobbyists, I look them up all the time because, and actually, when I was running, I would write to lobbyists, and I knew who they represented because I didn't want funding from some companies that maybe I don't agree with or could be a problem for me and wherever
That's
I
right.
was on a position. So you have to be a little careful, and because I've sent a few checks back over the years, like, I'm sorry.
I suspect I will too.
Yeah. Anyway, so online services, that I wasn't sure what that encompassed, but I'm sure you can do a lot of stuff online these
Yeah,
days.
I think we were really fortunate to have moved most of our systems online. So when the pandemic hit and we just sent everybody home, business as usual. We could
They could work at home.
keep on going.
Yep.
And it's made us way more efficient, and it's made the information we collect much more accurate. So it's a way that we've been able to do more with the same number of people and provide better customer service.
That's great. That's great. And municipal, you are very much involved with municipalities, which I don't think a lot of people know that, about how involved you are with all the municipalities.
That's right. We get questions every single day. I help people. It's one of the things I love about my job is I get to help people problem solve every day.
Right.
Citizens will often contact us and say, I'm having this issue with the school board or select board, and I want this document, but they're not giving it to me, or I think they violated the open meeting law. We arm people with their right to know.
Yep.
Which I know is important to you,
Yes.
in making sure that they can hold their government accountable.
Yep.
So you have a right to know. You have a right to attend public meetings. You have a right to those public documents that belong to the people and not to the state agencies or the towns.
Yeah, that's great. We used to be involved. I was when I was in motor vehicles because of signing up to register to vote. Would go through motor vehicles, and there were some problems with making sure that was flowing years ago.
Right.
But I think they've solved that now. So signing up at motor vehicles guarantees that you're on the books and can vote. So anyway, so I was looking at the list that you put down of your priorities on your campaign website, and I was looking at some of them, and you just explained to me one of them because and I'll skip around a little bit, but it was steady and experienced leadership in a crisis. And I think you mentioned the big crisis, which was the pandemic.
That was, I hope that Vermont voters will agree with me that they want someone who's tested as a leader and can do well in a crisis. I think we pulled it off in 2020 by switching to remote work, by having an election in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
And we were able to just keep on chugging along and giving the customer service that everybody expects.
And is it still the law that you don't need you didn't need signatures for this election that we just had?
You didn't for the local.
Local.
Yeah,
Okay.
but for the primary and for the general elections, we're still requiring it.
Because I thought that was a very good decision. Yeah. Because I know people to this day really, and rightly so, I get it, how nervous they are about getting COVID or whatever variation there is. And they don't want somebody they don't know knocking on their door.
That's right.
And that was a good decision.
Yeah.
How did you guys come up with that, or were you approached? Or
we did. So in 2020, we were very proactive about it and started talking about it early on about the temporary election procedures that we were going to need. We actually got by town meeting in 2020 just barely before COVID really kicked in.
I guess so. Right.
Yep. So for 2021, for the primary and the general, we put some of those things in place, and one of them was, the ability to waive the signature requirement.
That's great.
Not this year though, so I'm out there. I have to collect 500 signatures for a statewide office.
It's a big state. It doesn't look like it on the map, and they say how little we are. But when you're driving 3 hours to Bennington, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
You will love it. In all of the jobs I had in state government, I would travel, especially in transportation.
Mm-hmm.
I would go all over the state. It's just great here. People are amazing. They go out of their way to be kind and nice and get to know you. So
that's great.
You shouldn't have any trouble.
No. I've had the good fortune of meeting a lot of people from across the state by phone and by email mostly. So I'm hoping I'll get to see some of them in person.
The municipal people, and
Yes,
they're a good source to know.
That's right.
That's good. All right, so the other thing that you had is making it easier for small business, which of course I support 100 million %.
yeah.
We make it really tough for our small businesses. So what have you done or are going to do to help them?
Yep. For one, it's our business registration system is pretty easy to use, and then the renewal is you can do it in one click. So has anything changed?
Great.
No? Click. You've renewed your business. The other thing is the business portal, which is the vision for a one-stop shop for everything that a small business might need in interacting with state government. So it used to be you had to walk through 3 different doors. You had to go to the Department of Labor, you had to go to the Department of Taxes, and you had to go to us. And you could either fill out the form and put it in the mail with a check, or you could walk to each place, separate forms, separate checks. And what we did was in 2014, we had that built to be a one-stop online shop. So your information is carried from our online form to the Department of Labor, to the Department of Taxes. You get everything that you need in one stop. So our vision for that is, let's expand that. Let's hook in ACCD. Let's hook in professional licensing, maybe A&R permitting, Department of Liquor. Like, we did a study where you looked at a general store and you said, how many licenses, permits, permissions do they need? And it was mind-boggling. It was like 30 something.
Sure. Oh, for sure.
Something for dairy, something for meat, something for gas, something for weights and measures. All of these things. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could go through one door and get that all in one place? So that's what we're working on now.
It just dawned on me when I was in motor vehicles, there was a discussion about Secretary of State taking over registrations.
Ooh, some states do that.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, where is that? I think it's in Maine. Yes, in Maine. Secretary of State does it because I was going to a motor vehicle conference up in Toronto, and I was going to be doing something with the Secretary of State. We were going to be presenting, and it just didn't dawn on me, and why I was actually working with him. And he said, "Well, I'm in charge of motor vehicles." I said, "Whoa, let's not put that idea in anybody's head."
The Secretary of State's office in other states, it's just it was the Secretary of the state, so it was like the person who kept the journals and the records and the books for the state.
It does make sense.
And it was just kind of a catch-all. It depends from state to state what things got assigned there. Some have DMV, some have professional regulation, some have securities and nonprofits, and it's just kind of interesting stuff.
Oh, Jim was floating that around there for a while, so I don't know. Let's see, where are we? Oh, okay, so, and I think we've talked about this, but we should talk safe and secure elections. I think at one point I wanted to talk about what we have now. What's the process? Where are we in all of these changes? I know I got the mail, because the school voted to send home a ballot to me. That was a vote. Our select board chose not to.
So we have vote by mail for the general election, but the primary, where you get 3 ballots and you have to send 2 unvoted ballots back, is a little more complicated. So we said, let's not do the primary yet. And then local elections can be even more complicated when you have overlapping tech center vote, school vote, municipal, water, sewer, fire. You might be in 5 different districts and have 5 different ballots. So unless you can get all of those coordinated and all of them to agree, you can't just simply mail a ballot. You don't want to mail some things and not mail other things. It gets confusing. So we're studying that. We think vote by mail leads to greater turnout and participation, and that's a good thing. But you also have to look at the impact on traditional town meeting, on coordinating all of that.
And the lunch in between from the firehouse. I mean, I love the whole thing. I do.
So not for local and primary yet.
But what have we ever resolved or solved the issue of overseas ballots for our soldiers? And has that? I know when I was in the legislature, that was a huge issue about how to resolve that issue for the soldiers to vote. Have we done anything different, or I've lost track?
Well, at one point we moved to 45 days of early voting. It's the federal law does require that ballots be ready 45 days before the election, so that they can get out to those overseas voters and make sure they can get them back in time. So we actually had a perfect record of that this year. We got all of them out in time and all of them back in time. And my brother is actually serving in the Navy overseas in Belgium.
Oh, wonderful.
And
Well,
so,
thank him.
he's one of those voters over
Yeah.
there who has to get that ballot early so that they can get it back in time.
You know what concerned me? We had an issue in town where the school was asked to give up a couple of acres to
Yeah.
the town
Yep.
to be used as a town center.
Right.
And I got a call from a friend of mine in another town asking me how they should vote on this issue. And I was like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? What?
Welcome
Why
to
are
the-
you voting
welcome to the
on,
merged
on our
district.
land?
Yep.
And it dawned on me all of the issues that we could, in reverse, we could be voting on something
That's right.
in her school that I have
That's
no
right.
idea about what it is or stake, and I don't know if
Yeah.
that's.
That school land
That-
belongs to the district
yeah,
now, so
right.
all 5 towns have a stake in
I
it.
think we have to remember that when we're proposing things, that
Yeah.
you have to let everybody know what the issue is and why.
Right.
It adds more pressure if you
Mm-hmm.
want to get something done. But when I thanked her for calling me, because people might just do a gut reaction and vote yes
Yeah.
or no depending on how they think. But I thought,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's our
Right,
land and they're
right.
voting on it.
Yeah, but back to safe and secure elections, it's our number one priority.
Yeah.
It's not only it's physical security, it's cyber security, which has gotten increasingly complicated
Yeah,
over the last 6 years. It's protecting the integrity of the vote and having people trust
well,
that their
there
vote
was an
counts.
issue about the drop boxes too, where
Mm-hmm.
they are and how they stay secure if they're outside a building or.
We do have standards around drop boxes. They
Yeah.
have to be within sight of the municipal building or on camera, and rules around how you can collect and how they
Cool.
have to be secured to the ground.
Nice.
All of those things. I've seen, some other states move away from drop boxes, saying they're not safe, but we really haven't seen any evidence here that there's any problem with it whatsoever.
Maybe because I love Vermont and I trust Vermonters, but as with some of my friends, were a little upset with all of this, but I haven't gotten into that mindset.
Yeah.
Because I do think it brings more people out and gets them more involved.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
and it's another option for people because some people last general election were afraid if I put it in the mail, maybe it's not going to get there on
Right,
time.
right, exactly. Well, I must say, we thought of that when we dropped off our school ballot
Yeah.
at town meeting.
Yep.
And but
So the drop boxes are a nice addition,
that you
and
know.
right now towns can apply to us using grant money that we got from the federal government to get a drop box in their town if they don't have
great.
one yet. So a lot
well,
of
I like
towns
the
have them.
camera idea too, and if people know that, that will deter them from.
That's right.
But I don't know what you're going to do if you take the ballots. I don't understand. It's too much thought for me to figure out how you're going to take ballots and cheat.
Right.
But
No,
who knows?
it's vote by mail is safe and secure.
Yeah.
We didn't see any issues with
Right.
it in the last election, and we used it for 75% of the 375 people,
That's great.
75,000 people who
That's
voted.
great. That's great. Excellent. Okay, so I think we probably talked about this, the effective and efficient government. I think
Yes.
everything you're doing is trying to make it streamlined.
That's what we're trying to do is streamline things and remove unnecessary barriers, whether that's professional regulation or business registration or voting.
Excellent. And this one, I think we did with the pandemic, a steady and experienced leadership in a crisis. And I think you all certainly proved that.
Yeah, thank you.
That was, I tell you, well, we had that issue with Tropical Storm Irene too.
Yeah.
I mean, we just fixed the roads. We just did what we had to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's what your
right.
department did. Just
Yep.
buckle down and get it done.
It was a ton of work, and luckily we had the staff who are dedicated
Yeah.
and care so much about their work and about voting in
Yeah.
particular that they did what they needed to do.
You
And
really do have a great staff,
We,
by the way.
we do, and Jim and I and Eric, who's our chief of staff, we're not normally doing election stuff, but in 2020,
Yeah,
we were
everybody-
doing whatever we had to do. It was
Oh,
all
for
hands
sure.
on deck.
For sure. Well, because you can't mess around with the timelines. They are what they are.
That's right. There's a
And
lot
they
of
can't move.
so much on the
Yeah,
line, so
that's
much
good.
at stake.
And the last one that you put was transparency and accountability,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big one for me.
It's really important. I
yeah.
think, people don't have a lot of trust in government. So I think it's part of rebuilding that trust
Yeah.
is to say, here's how we're doing it. Let's just be honest and
Right.
open and come take a look. So if you don't think the elections had integrity, ask us.
Right.
We'll show you what we
Right.
did. Go watch a town clerk
Yeah.
process ballots. Go ask your town clerk. Go volunteer at the polls.
Right.
And you would have more faith in the elections process if you saw that. And the same with with our records. It's all open. Our meetings are open. It's important to accountability and to trust.
I had an experience years ago. They asked me to go down and to oversee with a bunch of other people an election that was very contentious, extremely contentious.
Yeah.
And the process about how the bags are opened up, how they're sealed, how they're opened up, how you count, how you double count.
There's a lot to it.
It really, it's no joke.
It's
And-
careful.
and-
Both
yeah.
parties are there. It's
Yeah.
observed.
Yeah,
Most people
and-
don't know that.
And I think that's it's. I don't know that they pay attention, but if you're
Yeah.
in it and see it, it's very impressive.
That's right.
There's not much room for error.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
There's just a woman who was running ours. Woo, a mess. she was like a drill sergeant, and rightly so, because she wanted to make sure it was all done without any challenge.
Yeah.
So there you go. Okay, so what's next then? And we've gone through the process of voting, but what's next? Is there anything that we should be doing going forward to make things more accessible, easier for people to participate in?
Well, you picked a good day to interview me.
Uh-oh, we have an
because
announcement?
We have an announcement.
Excellent.
There's this elections ranking that MIT does. It's called the Elections Performance Index, the
Yeah.
EPI. And all the states really want to get a good ranking in this.
Oh, this, I can see from your smile, I bet we're right up there.
Breaking news. We're up there. We're number one.
Are you kidding?
Yep, we got the top ranking. We're really proud of that and really excited about that.
You heard it here first. First, I hope you're making a big splash about this.
Yep, we're going to put out a press release on it on
Good for
Monday,
you.
so
I'll have to
people
look
people
for it.
will hear. It's really exciting.
That
They
is
do all of these
wonderful.
factors about voter turnout, and a lot of the credit goes to the clerks on this too.
Oh, yeah,
like
for
wait
sure.
times and the quality of the data, whether you do mailed ballots, tons of factors that
Yeah.
go into this.
Chris, that's awesome.
We're really excited about it. We were
really-
number one 4 years ago as well in
actually remember
2016.
that.
2018, we were number 3, but we're back on top.
There you go. You give a little incentive to
Very,
do even
very
better.
proud.
That's
So we've,
great.
we're constantly trying to do, and we can always do more.
Yeah.
Like we passed ballot curing last year, so if you make a mistake and maybe forget to sign your
Right.
certificate envelope, the town clerk can now, couldn't before under the law,
Yeah.
can now call you up, send you a postcard and say,
Right.
you want to come fix this so your vote counts.
That's great. That's great.
So we're always trying to improve voter access, improve the process. We have great systems. We have paper ballots, which is a gold standard. Automatic voter registration at the
Yep,
DMV. Election day registration in case something goes wrong with your
Yep, right.
registration.
Judges
you can
are on
register
call,
it there,
right?
ready to
Yeah.
go. Post-election audits is part of election security and election integrity. We
That's
do
great.
all of these things. So other states are now jealous,
If I
jealous
have-
of Vermont's
If I have
system.
one little complaint or
Okay,
concern,
let's
could
hear
I-
it.
Okay, when you go to a nursing home,
Yeah.
I think the law says that you can bring in somebody representing whatever, can bring in 50, I think the number is 50, ballots that have been signed at the, I just think that's a lot of signatures. I really, when that number was approved, I sort of,
Yeah.
that's a lot of people at a nursing home, and I don't, you need to spend some time with these folks to make sure they understand. Anyway, that's just my.
Yeah, I think the number was 25.
Was it? Yeah, and I thought they moved it 50, or am I wrong? Maybe if it's 25, I'm fine with it.
That's 25.
Well, then I take, just erase that. I thought somebody was arguing about. I was listening to the
Yeah.
committee, and the committee people wanted 50.
Yeah.
25?
It's 25.
Forget that. I'm taking that right off my list.
And it's really difficult to get in there and make that judgment. You and I on the
Right.
outside. Someone who's in a nursing home and still wants to vote,
Right,
and
right.
they need help, and they
Yeah.
need someone to come in and
Yeah.
do that.
I went over once or twice with our clerk to talk to people. And,
Yeah.
and it's really a responsibility to
Yes, it is.
make sure they understand
Yeah.
who they're voting for and what they're voting. I honestly thought it was 50, so I apologize.
Sure. I'm going to double check that. I'm pretty sure it's 25.
Yeah, well, a 25 would make more sense to me. 50 is like the whole nursing home, and that's just not good.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't know if we answered this. Do you have anything else that we're going to be looking at voting-wise to make it changes, to make it more better, bigger, better?
Yeah, I mean, we can always do more. We're doing really well We have new tabulators that are coming. So our
Oh, no
existing
kidding.
tabulators are pretty old, although they don't have a lot of miles on them because of the size of Vermont, so they're still functioning. But this has better technology. They're optical scanners.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so they're actually going to be able to take a picture of the ballot. So when you're done, you can actually see the images of every single ballot in the state. They'll be much more efficient. They'll run through they won't have some of the little glitches that you're seeing in tabulators now because of their age.
No hanging chads here, right?
No hanging chads here. Nope, just bubbles.
Just bubbles.
And Will Senning and his crew are going to be going around the state to train the clerks on this all summer long, and we'll have them in place for the primary and for the general election. So we're pretty excited about that.
Some people fill those forms out with that little circle thing, and they want to change it. They can be very confusing.
Yeah.
Because when I was down at that contentious voting thing, we had a huddle on one or two of them was like, oh my God.
Yeah, when we do our audits, you see all the different ways that people circle a circle or put an X or just a dot or, what in determining voter intent on those is really tricky.
Yeah, we found it very difficult. Just follow the instructions. It's not hard. Anyway, so I know when this was all going around, we were looking at people carrying on about voter fraud and election security. And I think you're very confident that not here, right?
Yeah, I mean we are focused on this constantly, and people should pay attention to whether or not there's voter fraud. But we just haven't seen the evidence. There are a few people who talk a lot about it.
Yeah.
And we say, bring us some evidence, make the complaint. We want to investigate it. We want to know if this is happening, and just there's nothing comes forward. So there's not a widespread voter fraud problem. Not saying that it never happens.
Right.
It probably happens here and there, but it's reported.
Well, there's a lot of anecdotal things.
A lot of anecdotal.
Yeah.
And talk to your town clerk. Again, see how an election is run. See how not worth it is to try to change one vote in the state of Vermont.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I must say in Vermont, there's very few one-vote differences. Like I won by one vote.
Yeah.
It's pretty substantial usually. That's a blanket statement, but there's very few squeakers.
Right.
I think you're either they love you or maybe not.
Yeah.
But, this thing, you probably know where I'm coming from on this, but identification at when you're there voting.
Right.
I don't see why not, but I know there's a lot of people and they say it's discriminatory and it's not fair to certain groups of people, but I just think that your ID is required all kinds of places, Costco for heaven's sake. Why not at voting?
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think that it's understandable that people think, why not? But Costco's not a constitutional right.
Hey.
Well, some people may think so.
They've got a lot of my money.
I like to focus on the problem. So what problem are we trying to cure here? Voter ID would prevent voter impersonation at the polls.
Right.
So how often are we actually seeing that?
I think those are the anecdotal stories you hear, because the ones that I have heard stem from colleges. And maybe it's the kids thinking it's cute to say, I voted 2-3 times, and maybe, obviously, I would hope they didn't, but just to add to the, churning the waters.
Yeah.
But it might stop a lot of complaints or concerns. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's where we are now. We're with some people talking about voter fraud so much that it's shaken some people's faith in our elections. Like, maybe it's not secure. Maybe there's not integrity.
They put out non-driver IDs at DMV. I mean, the state could put some money aside, and if you don't have the funds for that, they could give it to you. So you'd have, or electric bill with your name and address on it, if that's suffice something.
Yeah. Well, I'll go back to saying I think it's a cure in search of a problem.
Right.
We really haven't seen a problem with it, so why do that? But you're right. It's all in the implementation in other states. Do they make it hard to get the ID? Do they make it easy to get the ID? And just think about from other perspectives. Maybe you're a student, maybe you're poor, you don't have transportation, maybe you're elderly and you've lost your license and don't know how to get the documents that you need to get that ID back. The studies have shown that voter ID disproportionately affects the young, the elderly, the disabled, and communities of color. So if we're not really trying to solve a problem, is the problem just I'm worried that the elections aren't secure, or that maybe there's some fraud coming?
Of course, in this state, we pretty much, at least in Berlin, we know everybody, don't we?
Well, you talk to some of the clerks, and I think they know who's coming through the
door. They know
door.
everybody. And it's the same thing. God bless them, by the way. Thank you, ladies. Every year
clerk.
it's the same group of women, and they know. And they have to ask you what your name is legally. They say you have to. I self-identify, but
the town clerks and the poll
they know if
workers
I
are
give them the
amazing.
wrong name, I'll tell you.
That's right. That's right.
Look at me like I don't think so, McDonald. So I'm not arguing. I wasn't arguing with that. I just think it would stop so many. Just stop the complaining. I mean,
it would
what
stop
else
the
could they
complaining,
complain
but I
about?
think it really does have the potential to disenfranchise some people. They might not be able to get the ID.
Yeah, well, or the documents needed to substantiate, your birth certificate. And
think about if you had to take time off work for that, and you don't have time to take off, or you don't have the transportation, and you don't have the money to pay for the documents.
And actually, we'd have to make legally, if I'm remembering correctly, DMV, your license is not ever supposed to have been used as a legal form of identification.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
I
That's
don't.
your...
If I'm wrong, I apologize again. Second time tonight. But I'm pretty sure that was never intended. It's sort of like your Social Security number. That was never intended. Every credit card that you have asks for your. I mean, a lot of that stuff is being. Of course, now it's used, so it's part of the system, but wasn't intended that way in the beginning.
So if you wanted to impersonate somebody at the polls, you'd have to show up there and know that other person hasn't voted or isn't coming in to vote.
Right.
So we don't get any complaints about that every election. And we would if someone showed up at the polls and they were already marked off.
I bet you would.
You would hear about it.
I bet you would. Certainly in our town, so don't do that. Rosemary's on. She's right there. I love her. You know who's great? The Association for Town Clerks, Carol Dawes, I think.
Carol's amazing.
Is Carol still
She is.
the chair of that?
Yeah, we were testifying on a bill together today.
She is so knowledgeable. Carol Dawes is the town clerk for Barry City. And they are so fortunate to have her. When she doesn't run some year, that's going to be a problem because she is very knowledgeable.
She is.
And they have a lot of respect for her up at the State House, and she handles some of their questions very well.
She does. She did it today. We're on a land records bill. Yeah.
Oh, great. I love it. You're reading. Oh, no, what's she going to say? So I wanted to ask you this question because I love to hear what people have to say. Yeah. You've been in the Secretary of SOS, Secretary of State's office for 25 years. What are you most proud of? 1 or 10 things? What are you most proud of?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. So now that I'm out there running as a candidate, I'm hearing from all kinds of people that I haven't heard from in 10 or 20 years. And they're saying, Chris, I'm so glad you're running. Because we had worked together, and words that keep coming up are integrity and nonpartisanship and trust. And it's funny because I look back and think, oh, we really had it out. I had fights with these people over issues, but they respected the way that I did it. Yeah. And I had mutual respect for them, so we could disagree and get to a solution. Yeah. So I'm really proud that that's my reputation out there.
Great.
It's how my mom and dad raised me,
Thanks, Mom.
And we can disagree and still respect each other. Yeah. And sometimes we can compromise and sometimes we can't. But always being respectful and listening to the other side.
I have always found when you're doing this at a door, when you're knocking on the door and you're face to face with somebody, if you can articulate why, and you have a valid reason why you agree or disagree with something, people will respect that. If you can articulate it, if you start doing the Bobby Weeby stuff and not really can explain your position, I think people may disagree, but they'll respect that you can hold your own and have a valid reason. Because I always tell staff, if they've screwed something up, why? And if they can give me a valid reason, I'm okay. Yeah. That I understand that.
Yeah. So I'm really proud of those relationships. Good. And then maybe being a little more specific, I'm really proud of what we built at the Office of Professional Regulation. It's right-sized government. I like to fight that stereotype every single day that we're bureaucrats who we sit around and we don't care about the people, and we're fighting that stereotype every single day.
Yeah.
We have people who are really dedicated and passionate, and at OPR, we built a system that's the envy of the rest of the country. We get asked to go speak to other states about how to do it.
Great.
And then elections, of course. I'm really
well,
proud
you should be.
of what we did in 2020 and the fact that we're #1 again.
That is, I'm excited for you. That's
Thank you.
really great. What a great way for Jim to
That's right.
retire.
The cherry on top of the sundae.
Exactly,
Is what I told
serious high note. And for you to win the election, there you go.
Well, I hope so.
That's great. Well, and, the question I wanted to ask you now, and I don't know if there's an answer to it other than hard work, but how in your mind are you going to plan to get around to this state? I mean, up to the Canadian border, down to the New York border, and I mean, it's a lot of work. How
it is a lot of work.
Put your mind around that and have some kind of plan to get out.
Yeah, I'm getting my mind around it now that I'm out there.
Yeah.
And we were talking before, like, just because I'm well known in Montpelier does
I
not mean
know.
a darn thing
Yeah.
in the rest of the state. So I've got to get my message out there.
Yeah,
I'm going to be.
we were talking about there's a lot of people like, well, anybody that's in power in Montpelier particularly, because they wield such power in the State House, they think, oh, everybody, well, they don't.
Yeah. No, people don't know me, so it's going to be a lot of travel.
Yeah.
I'm going to need to take some time off in order to do it. And luckily, I didn't take hardly a day off in 2020, so I've got some in the bank.
There you go, you got a bank. Good job.
But it's going to be, I really am looking forward to getting out to all the different counties, all the different towns and cities in the state. I joined the 251 Club just so
that
I
is so much
can
fun.
mark it off as I go.
Good for you.
And it'll be a lot of work, but I'm looking forward to it, and bless my family for putting up with it.
Well, I bet they were at the table when you were making this decision, because it's a family production.
It absolutely is. I had to get their buy-in first before I would do it.
So do you have should I ask you this, do you have a 2-minute stump speech that, hi, I'm Chris Winters, and I'm running? You have to have one of those.
Sure, I certainly do. I mean, so...
Well, maybe at the end of the show I'll ask you to deliver it to the camera about why they should vote for you, because sometimes I was at an event, it was at one of the nursing homes, and packed people, and there were like 17 candidates, and they gave us each a minute.
Oh boy.
To talk about.
Yeah, that's hard.
To talk about something that was contentious, and most issues are not yes or no or yes. It just needs explanation.
Yeah.
And I kick myself after that, because you walk away and you go, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. But you can't possibly.
Yeah, and that's going to be hard for me. I'm someone who works in policy for so long, and you want to give all the details, and you can go down into the weeds on every issue.
Yeah, people
but you can't do that. You got to talk in sound bites.
Care.
I'm not in between the sound bites. Is that your tagline?
That says listening beyond the sound bites.
Listening beyond the sound bites. Well,
you know what my explanation of that is? If somebody says it's free, you better start asking questions. Because it's not.
That's right.
It's not.
Yep.
Anyway, so you're going to need to have a group and get out there but I think your connection with the municipalities, and of course, what's really difficult from a campaign perspective is those early ballots. You pretty much have to have your campaign done.
End of June for an August 9th primary.
Really?
Yeah. End of September for a November general
election.
election.
Oh, there you go. Because people now, I mean, I haven't, people now are using early ballots. My husband and I do it. I have no reason in the world to do it. I just like it done. And so we do it. And I think about the politicians when I was doing it myself, because you need to get out there and reach them.
That's right.
A
lot of retail politicking for me, for someone who's not known statewide, who's not going to get the attention of a congressional race or a lieutenant governor or governor's race. So I'm just going to pound the pavement.
And Jim's been on a few parades. Those are I love parades, honestly.
Oh, I get to walk in parades.
Yeah, there you go.
Wait.
You get to go to Brandon with the cows.
Oh,
Is that the heifer? I can't remember what that was.
The strolling of the heifers. That's Brattleboro, isn't it?
Is that Brattleboro? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I ran into Jim when he was in Brandon one day, which reminded me. But
my first parade is April 24th, the Maple Fest in St. Albans.
Oh, that's a great parade.
I've never been. I can't wait to go.
Good. Do you have any tagline, anything that we can announce, like some kind of catchy?
Well, on my website, it's experience you can trust.
I like that.
Yeah.
That covers a whole lot of.
I hope so. And ready to lead on day one is another thing that I like to say to people.
With 25 years, you've been through a few secretaries that you mentioned, Deb Markowitz.
Yes. Deb is my campaign treasurer.
Oh, is she? Oh,
Yes.
what a wonder! Oh,
Yes.
that's great.
She's been very kind to me through the years.
I
You
bet.
know, she helped mentor me and promote me
Yep.
into the director position, and I learned a lot from Deb, especially about the relationship with the town clerks.
Oh well, yeah. That's sometimes doesn't go well. So
It can, yes,
can
it
go
has for
badly. I
some in
think
the past. That's right.
with some of them. But then you had Mr. Milne,
Yes.
and
That was it, from Jim Milne to Deb
That's
Markowitz. For Deb was 12 years, and Jim was 12
wow,
years.
that says a lot for the folks
Yeah,
who
yeah.
were.
Well, I hope it means that Vermonters want, another one of my catchphrases, a steady hand on the wheel.
Yeah.
Like some continuity, some stability when it comes to running an office like the Secretary of
Yeah.
State's office. Not a
Right.
politician, someone who really can manage the office and give them those essential services that they need.
That's great. Have you ever been? I'm trying to think politically if the Secretary of State's ever been in the thick of things, but I think the voting was about as thick as you could get with the mail-in and all that stuff, with people really pushing back that it's room for fraud and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. That really kept you guys going.
That really has. Yep, it's been a sleepy office for a long time, but now
Yeah.
you see across the country, people are really paying attention
Yep,
to
right.
Secretary of State races.
Well, I think that you mentioned it before about the cyber security. I mean, we're talking about it now, what's happening in Ukraine. People are really worried about, and that's election. The more you do electronically, the more people start to worry about it.
All right.
But anyway.
Yep, yep.
So is there anything you would like to wrap up the show with? Or maybe your stump speech?
I can try my
We
stump
can do-
speech. You know, I gave you a little bit of it earlier. It's been 3 weeks since I announced, so I haven't really given any stump speeches yet.
Well, we can turn the show over to you and introduce
Excellent. All right.
our new Secretary of State.
Well, thank you, Pat.
Potentially. No, listen, I've worked with you for a long time. No endorsements, but 25 years.
Thanks.
Be interesting to see who else might want to run it against you, but
Yep.
I don't know how one beats 25 years. But
Well,
there
you
go.
know, I hope there are some primary opponents. I think
Yeah.
it'll make me better, and it'll, give some
yeah, because
contrast.
then they'll have debates, and debates are
That's right.
very important.
Good. I would love to.
No,
I can talk passionately about these issues
Yeah.
because I love the work.
Yeah.
And that's part of my stump speech that I gave to you earlier. Should I look at the camera
Yes,
now?
please go right ahead.
I don't have it memorized yet, so I don't know how good of a
Just-
politician
you
I
can-
am so
you can
far.
read
But
it. It's okay.
I decided to run for Secretary of State because I believe in the work, and I've dedicated my career to this work. And all I ever wanted was, I keep looking at you when I'm supposed to look at the camera.
That's okay.
All I've ever wanted is to give back to the state that gave so much to me. And I've always wanted to make a difference, and as big of a difference as I could make. So starting as staff attorney, going to the Director of Professional Regulation, Deputy Secretary of State, I think the logical next step for me is Secretary of State, because I've got more to do, and I would love to do more to make a difference in Vermont. I want to keep us on the right track. I think the Secretary of State's office has provided some really great services over the years. We've done great work. I want to keep that momentum going with safe, secure, and accurate elections, efficient and effective systems that for professional licensing and business registration that help boost the economy, transparent and accountable government to rebuild public trust, and to maintain that excellent customer service that our office has always been known for. So I want to keep us on the right track, and I hope Vermonters agree that they want someone with experience, a track record of results, and who will be ready to lead on day one. And I hope you vote for Chris Winters for Secretary of State. The W, we're going to be near the bottom of the ballot.
Bottom, right.
And if you want to learn more about me and my campaign and what I stand for, it's wintersforvermont.com. Thank you.
Good job.
Thanks, Pat.
Excellent.
I got to work on it, but I'll get there.
It'll come because you believe in all that stuff. So
I do believe in it.
you believe in that's good. But I will just reiterate what you said about your staff. Everybody, without exception, that I have worked with over the years, and I just think it's a culture in the department.
it is.
So I don't know if it necessarily, obviously with Jim's and your leadership, but Deb, I just thinking of all those people. I think it's the kind of people that are attracted to that work are good customer service people, and probably love Vermont.
Yeah, you're
So,
right. It
good
really
group.
is about the culture.
Yeah.
I'm just so fortunate to be in the position to be able to run for Secretary of State right
That's
now. I
right.
feel very lucky to
Good.
even be able to do
Well,
it.
good luck to you and your family, and thank you for coming on.
Thank
and
you, Pat.
Thanks for the news, number one.
Number one.
Serious. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next week, and in the meantime, keep listening beyond the sound bites.